The state of the state is what?
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
You know, it's actually interesting to ask that question, and almost annually, although I didn't squeeze it in this year with everything that's going on the radio side, on WDPR weekdays noon to 3. I'll ask that question, and the phone calls come in, and they can be all sorts of nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs coming in. The state of the state is what? But there's no doubt in my mind right now that that even though there are significant differences of opinion about how to move the state forward, as the governor likes to say, I like the R word because it's in there, forward. Most people think that there's a job that needs to be done, that we're behind, and that we've got to get going. There are certain pockets of Rhode Island that are actually doing incredibly well, and there's certain status, what do I say, folks like Quonset, and we're going to talk about that today, who are actually doing things that you don't even know are going on, unless you drove down there and said, holy cow, what's going on down here? And that's part of what my discussion is going to be tonight as we dig into a $70 million bond question that we are going to have to answer come this fall. All right, welcome into my State of Mind. I know that was kind of a lengthy start, but sometimes in an ad-lib program, that's what you get. Let's do some more ad-libbing and come over to the rundown and talk about what is a done deal. The Roadworks program is so done, it's almost insulting, because if you watched the governor yesterday, she was congratulating the leadership on something that hasn't even been voted upon yet.
Now, while we're at it, let's reject the politics of procrastination and pass the Roadworks bill. It is time to fix our roads and bridges. Rebuilding our crumbling roads and bridges is essential to attracting great companies to Rhode Island. First-class jobs go to places with first-class infrastructure. And while we're doing it, we're going to put thousands of Rhode Islanders to work. Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Senate President, for leading on this critical issue, for doing the right thing for Rhode Island, and for creating those jobs. Let's get this done.
You know, this is a stimulus program. You can hear her commentary. The Roadworks program to fix bridges and roads is a stimulus program. It's requested by labor. Now look, the bottom line is, when you fix the roads and bridges, somebody's got to do it. And so jobs are going to be created by getting that done. But the primary motive of this is a thank you to labor for getting Gina Raimondo elected. Now, Nick Mattiello and Teresa Paivuit have different motives. Teresa Paivuit just wants to go along, get a judgeship. The Speaker of the House now has molded the plan enough to his own liking that he now has to own it and show his authority. And whatever trading is going on between the Speaker and the Governor on this will come out over the course of time. But let me just say this. We all agree that we need the roads and bridges taken care of. But here's my analogy. Okay, you got a house. Draw a house. You got a house? You know, you have one, I have one. Okay. The basement is crumbling, right? Well, you may have a home equity line that you have to use because you don't have the cash flow to fix the basement because it comes out to $27,000. You say, oh my gosh, I'm going to tap my line, which means you're going to borrow the money. At the same time, you might be thinking, I'd like to put on a new deck and add a pool in the backyard. Well, there's just so much you can afford. We need to get back to basics, and if the roads and bridges need to get done, well, the roads and bridges need to get done. Let's get them done. And we get them done any way we can. But what we don't do is add a new revenue stream like tolls, which will restrict our economic growth. Now, I didn't even get a chance to have Lexi put this into the program today, but it will be at least a conversation tomorrow. The Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council put out a report today at the Senate hearing, which talks about how economically problematic the tolls are. And they actually recommend a borrowing program to get the bridges fixed. And I want to hear what they have to say because it makes sense and the tolls do not. It's a one-week sprint. If they get it done next week, it's so far in advance of the rest of the legislative session, they hope you forget about it, and then a presidential race will camouflage the entire thing, and they'll never have to answer for it because the gantries won't be up before Election Day 2016. Pay attention, get on the horn to your reps and say, yeah, fix the roads and bridges, no on the tolls. Anyway, one man's take, right? Paying for growth is kind of the whole philosophy here. It's all about innovation. Headlines of innovation. We got headlines, innovation. We got more innovation. You got another headline. There's the innovation officer around college. Of course, it caused a little disturbance, and people are raising questions, and they should, because I raised the issue. You can't pay for a cabinet member reporting to the governor at a Rhode Island College Foundation fund. You can't. She's doing it. It's not my issue here. But she loves to talk about innovation, and some of it's okay.
I propose a major expansion of our research and development tax credit, which will encourage people to develop and to make cutting-edge products right here in Rhode Island. Leading experts believe the R&D tax credit is one of the strongest tools to drive the creation of more American jobs.
Okay. And coupled with that is this notion that she wants to put a $20 million bond question out for an innovation center that she visualizes might be at URI, could be at 195, and it's a cooperative effort between a school and an industry to do things. And again, if it's bondable money, I'm looking forward to hearing the logic about what we're going to do down at Quonset, because there's real proof of economic activity down there. But there's only just so much borrowing that you can do. So think about this. We got a bridge program that requires, $40, $50, $60 million a year, and she wants to borrow for an innovation center. She wants everything done. It's like that commercial, more and more and more and more, and I just want more, and I want more and more and more and more. At some juncture, you got to get back to basics and fix the place first before you're doing more and more and more and more, because it's counterproductive. Some innovation ideas she has are good, and some of the education ideas that she has are good. The emphasis was on education during the State of the State last night. Headlines reflected that. Jobs budget, and then the charter issue has been in the news lately, and now the governor is going to kind of tweak the whole thing for charter schools, and here's what she had to say about it, and I thought she was pretty much on target.
And I propose to you a revised funding formula that maintains the importance of money following the child, but it also is designed to level the playing field between district schools and charter schools. It provides that when a student moves from a district school to a charter school, some of the money stays behind in the district school. As a result, our public schools will see new investments, and every single school district in Rhode Island will be better off than it was before the changes. The proposal also recognizes that certain students face specific challenges which impose extra costs to educate them.
Here's what Gina Raimondo is doing well here. She is trying to balance the arguments between traditional public schools and charter schools and the funding formula. See, the charter schools have grown to a point. The Blackstone Valley Prep is an example, drawing from Central Falls, Lincoln, Pawtucket, and Cumberland. It's grown to the point where reevaluating the financial foundation for it is probably appropriate. Even charter school fans have got to admit that. So good for her in doing that. What she is doing, though, and I admire her for this, she's pushing back against the status quo protectors in education. They don't get a lot here by my first glance, and that's a good thing. We'll have more conversation about that as we go on. Let's veer off of Rhode Island. We're going to come back to it in just a couple of lines there on the rundown, but let's veer off because it's just too funny. Let's take a break. Let's just take a break. Lexi's sighing over there. She's no big fan either. Headline after headline after headline, Steve. Just Ted Cruz stealing Iowa. That's what Donald says. He wants a new election because Cruz is stealing Iowa, and now he blames everybody else for losing in Iowa. It just gets better and better. Roll it.
Donald Trump is alleging that Ted Cruz won the Iowa caucus by committing fraud. He tweeted, "Ted Cruz didn't win Iowa, he stole it. That is why all of the polls were so wrong and why he got far more votes than anticipated. Bad." In a series of tweets, he said the Cruz campaign put out a release as the caucuses were beginning that said Ben Carson was quitting the race and that voters should go with Cruz. Trump tweeted that a new election should take place or the results should be nullified.
In case you're wondering or scoring at home, this is a presidential election. Really? It speaks for itself. One more note. I wanted to throw a sports note in here. I only get 6 lines. The computer only gives me 6 lines here, in case you're wondering. I was going to say PC. I must have jinxed them because I told you they couldn't lose on the road to save their lives. Well, they lose to DePaul. What happened there? But I couldn't resist this. Speaking of colleges, have you seen this this headline? Yeah, fall weekend now, Indigenous Peoples Day. That would replace that oh so popular Columbus Day on the Brown campus. And rather than opining about this, I'll just ask the question again. Really? Look, it's Brown being Brown. And if Brown wasn't being Brown, it wouldn't be Rhode Island. I think that's the diplomatic way to handle this, don't you think? Let's talk about this bond. There's a question that's going to be asked of you. Roll a little bit of this video, will you, Steve, and see if we can glimpse anything out of this. The Port of Davisville, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a fast-moving thing here, so the boss down there at Quonset is going to kind of explain the whole thing to you. In fact, as we're doing it, Steve, this is a video. Steve King, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
This information obviously is available on your website, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. But quietly in the middle of the governor's initiatives, kind of missing from the coverage has been a $70 million ask of me, you, and everybody else coming up, right?
Right, that's right.
Give me an executive summary, then we'll dig into it.
All right, so this is about refreshing our infrastructure to reinforce it for the future, for the next 50-year future.
Your infrastructure.
The Quonset infrastructure, which belongs to the state taxpayers in the state of Rhode Island. So it's beyond its lifespan. It was designed for 50 years. It's now 60 years old. So it's time for us to freshen it up and keep it in good order for the future. Our business is tremendous at Quonset. Year over year, double-digit growth. We're going to have some new numbers out on Friday, above 2015, another record-breaking year for us. And we want to make sure we can continue to grow business and attract more business.
What specifically is the money going to go for?
Right, so the money's going to go to put a new facade, if you would, a new face on Pier 2. So Pier 2 is essentially a piece of land.
You want to hold your thought, because I'm told that our camera is stuck on that B-roll, and so what we're going to do is we're going to pause, we're going to come back, and so people can see you and hear you better. We'll be right back. Important as they are, we apologize for the end of that last segment. We had, hey, listen, sometimes cameras get stuck. It's not that we didn't want to show Steve. So once again, the managing director at the Quonset Business Park, Steve King. The website shows all sorts of information about all the cool things that are going on at this economic hub, and it really is. And I bet you, Rhode Islanders being who they are, right? We talked about this last time you were here. They come, they go 15 minutes, or they pack a lunch. If you just took a drive down 403,
yeah.
Once or twice, and see what is this monstrosity of what economic development feels like, it would be a good thing for them, I think.
It sure would. We have nearly 200 companies with nearly 11,000 jobs down at Quonset now, so things are very, very moving along quite well.
All right, so the subject that we're discussing tonight, though, is a $70 million bond question that will go to the voters. It was not mentioned in the State of the State, and there hasn't been a lot of coverage, although that kind of stuff will roll out. This is not the first time the question has been asked for infrastructure needs at the park.
That's right, Dan. The last time was 2004. There was a $48 million bond issue. That's been the backbone of most of that success that you mentioned. We were able to improve quite a bit of our infrastructure and prepare the park for future development over the last decade, which has led to nearly 4,000 new jobs.
That 48 mil was spread over a course of time.
It was about 8 or 9 years.
So the 70 million that you're going to ask us for in September, same thing?
It would roll out probably about a 4 or 5 year sequence of multiple phases of the project, yes.
All right, so what's it primarily for?
So this particular money is particularly for improvements to Davisville Pier 2 at the Port of Davisville. The pier was...
So we should show the pier right there.
Yeah, that nice photo.
What a drop dead gorgeous shot. You didn't take that photo, did you?
Somebody that we
I'm afraid of heights.
For us, yeah.
Could be an air show photo. I mean,
it was an aerial photo, but not from the air show.
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. That's where what comes in?
That's where the 2 ships you saw in the photo are auto carriers. So they bring in brand new automobiles that are coming from Germany and Mexico into our state and being distributed from that location.
Yeah, we have pictures of that too, I think, Steve. If you dig them out, the If you're down there live when a shipment comes in, and I've had the opportunity having toured your facility and seen it, it's very impressive. When the cars come in, it's pretty cool.
It really is. It really is. At any one time, there's up to 30,000 cars on the ground at the port at any one month. So it's quite impressive to see. And when the ships are in, there are hundreds of people that work down there moving the cars around. So there's a lot of jobs associated with this activity.
All right. So you're going to fix the pier. We've got other drawings, and Steve can put them up as we go. But overall, it's old.
It's old, right. So this infrastructure was part of the naval base at Davisville. So it's now well beyond its 50-year design life. We're in year 60 for Davisville Pier 2. So it's just time for us to refurbish it and put it in good order for the next 50 years. And it's beginning to show its bones a little bit, so it's time for us to address that issue.
The nature of the depth of the water and people are always thinking they know what that whole thing is all about. Tell us what the realities are about how much water, how much depth, what can come in, what can't come in, that kind of thing.
So the reality here is in 2012, we deepened the berth next to this pier to minus 32. So from high tide or mean tide down 32 feet. To put that in perspective, like apart the seas like Moses, and we stood at the bottom of Narragansett Bay, we'd be looking up at a 4-story tall steel wall that holds back the earth of that pier.
Wow.
And that steel originally was only a ½ inch thick. It's now about 70% of that thickness due to the corrosion over time. So that's why we need to think about rehabilitating it.
At what point does that become dangerous?
There's not even close to dangerous at this point. So our objective here is to try to get the improvement in place over 5 years, so we don't even have to address that question.
Right.
So we're in good shape for the next 50 years.
When it comes to the pier and redoing it, is this about? Obviously, it almost speaks for itself. You got to paint the house. You got to paint the house. You need a pier.
Exactly.
But is it really important about sustaining existing business, or is it also important about the growth of new business?
Right. So it's a little of both. So the existing business I mentioned is robust, very, very robust. More than 200,000 units of autos are brought into our port. That business has grown 547% since 1996 in that time frame. So it's been a tremendous trajectory of growth for us at the port. So that's been continuous over the last 6 or 7 years. We've had double-digit growth, and if we continue on that trend, we're going to need to build some more capacity. So one of the advantages of doing this is we can build another berth at the end of Davisville Pier 2 that's not currently long enough for the car ships to dock. We need to do that to sequence the work, not to disrupt the business while we're making the improvements, but the leave behind is an additional berth, which gives us another 100,000 or so unit capacity for us to grow.
So how do you grow that business? Is that you on the horn? Seriously, how does that come?
So it's not me. We have a great partner at the port. Our vehicle processing company is a company called North Atlantic Distribution, goes by the name NORAD.
Right.
NORAD has been a tremendous tenant for us. We've made a long-term commitment back in 2007. We signed a 40-year lease with NORAD to have occupancy at the port. They've been working down that facility now since the mid-'80s. And have just continued to grow and grow and grow. And it's really, I think, the commitment that we made to them back in 2007 that set the stage for them to have long-term predictability of occupancy to grow their business.
So is it incumbent in order for the business park, which is a quasi-government entity, to make good on the lease, that you've got to upgrade? I mean, you've got to give them the capability to be able to do their thing, right?
That's right. So access to these port facilities obviously is hand in hand with the lease that they signed with us. So that's part of the arrangement. I want to thank the governor for her great support to move this initiative forward. The Secretary of Commerce prior, he's the chair of my board now at Quonset, and they've been tremendous partners.
Is that a new arrangement?
Yeah, so by statute, it's always been the executive director of the Economic Development Corporation. So
Okay.
when they realigned things, it became the Secretary of Commerce. But you heard the governor in her speech last night say first-class infrastructure brings first-class jobs, and I believe that, and this is about that.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about all the other stuff that's going on at the business park, and it's not just one story. Stay with us. With Steve King, who runs the business operation at Quonset. This is, as I said, I just think If Rhode Islanders are getting a little down on themselves and the economy and the like, a visit to Quonset is kind of like a wow thing. Now, you know, when people go down for the air show, they get it, they see it, all that kind of thing. But it really is something that should remind people that we do have a thriving business part down there, and we've got this is better seen most likely on the website, and if you've got a 72-inch screen TV, you could probably read along with me here. But we're talking about 200 companies, 11,000 workers, 11,000 people. In fact, last time you were here, I think it was 9,800. You know,
That's
so
right.
already.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. So it was just 10,000. We had a big announcement a year ago, December. We're not quite at 11,000 yet. We're very close, and we know within several months we expect to breach that number, and that'll give us another milestone.
What is the current capacity right now? How many new businesses can you still add there?
Right, so we have about just under 300 acres of land left and 35 different parcels of land of varying sizes. So we project out that we could add another 4 to 5,000 more jobs if we build out all the remaining space that we have.
The specific kinds of businesses that have to be there?
No, not at all. So we have a very varied tenant mix at the park, and opportunities for distribution companies to manufacturing companies to office tenants and the like. So a lot of broad opportunities.
You see, you see the electric boats, you see the NORADs, you see all of that kind of stuff, and then you see smaller companies that are actually could be defined as mom and pop. So it really is a mosaic, isn't it?
It really is, and QDC did an initiative a year or two ago. We opened up a second small office where we're actually renting offices by the month by the office. So there's companies that small, one-person operations, all the way to EB with 3,600 employees. So everything in between.
What are people saying about why they like it down there so much?
I think it's just the business environment. They're not, mixed out in the community. They have a nice location. The access is very good. And there are, key reasons for large companies to move there. Green Corp USA just built a new $42 million plant, opened business in April, and hired 400 Rhode Islanders to work there. And for them, they're distributing product from Portland, Maine, all the way to New York City. So Rhode Island is a perfect place for that supply chain logistics.
Every once in a while, the radio show will come up with, hey, where should we put this kind of a place, da-da-da-da-da, and Quonset is invariably brought to the table for about ideas A to Z.
Right.
Will it ever become more than just the business park? Or is it?
I think that is what it is, Dan, and it's been very successful at that. And I think we need to focus on closing it out and have an eye towards the next location in our state where we can have business growth. I mean, that will be a challenge for us in the future, I'm certain.
So there's no casino, there's no new airport, there's no amusement park, there's no aquarium that really kind of fits the, hey, what do you think brainstorming that goes on with Rhode Islanders?
Right, so we've heard a lot of those things over the years,
Right.
as you know.
Right.
Obviously, it would take a tremendous disruption to existing business and existing jobs to make some big play like that, and you'd certainly have to have a reason to do that, and we haven't seen a business case for that yet.
Well, the reason I ask, and this will be kind of like the last thought, the reason I ask is that I don't think enough people have been down there, other than those who work there. If you went down there, I think you would understand that what has happened is a huge success, and you don't really need to be brainstorming about bringing in roller coasters or whatever.
We do a lot of outreach, and we have a lot of folks come for tours, and the standard response at the end of the tour is, wow, who knew?
All right, well, listen, you're going to ask the question. It comes out of the budget, $70 million for us to decide that we want to keep investing there. It seems to me it's kind of like not if, it's got to. But as we get closer to the election, we'll bring it back and have you highlight all the benefits. Appreciate it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right, Steve, thanks. When we come back, a final word. Stay with us. So Lady Gaga is going to sing the national anthem. Just thought I'd mention that in the one more thing. You've seen Lady Gaga before, right? I find her fascinating, and I think it's great. And soon I'm told, or I read at least, that we're going to have to call her Sister Gaga because she's studying to be a nun. See you on the radio tomorrow at noon on WPRL. Take care.